What happened today?
Well, this was my first court appearance before Judge Thomas Wingate of the Franklin Circuit Court, right there. And there was one opposing lawyer there, the lawyer representing Allison Lundergan Grimes. The other lawyers didn't show up. Of course, none of the defendants showed up. And there were several motions before the judge. The most important ones are the two motions to dismiss my lawsuit. And I succeeded in getting the judge to agree to rule on those motions in writing without holding another hearing.
Geoff Young versus Stephen Shear. This is a motion for a jury trial. We're seeking a motion for a jury trial on a date that's already passed, looks like. Tell me about this case, Geoff Young.
Thank you, Your Honor. Three motions currently have been filed.
Okay.
Two motions to dismiss, which between them cover all five defendants. I filed a very timely answer to those two motions.
Right.
And my amended motion for a speedy trial, notice for today, and I would like to add two more motions to the pot. If I
Okay.
may.
What is that?
First one is I move that the motions to dismiss be heard today, and the second that the court order a settlement conference among all the parties.
Would you notice this motion to dismiss?
We noticed it for the 27th, Your Honor. John Solomon on behalf of defendant Allison Lundergan Grimes. Mark Guilfoyle, who represents the remaining defendants, is out of the country, and as I understand, won't be back until the end of the month. That's why we both noticed our motions to dismiss for the 27th.
Okay.
I object to that late date.
What do you object? What is this case about? I don't even know, Mr. Young, okay? What's this case about?
Thank you. My civil complaint filed on March 2nd this year is against Governor Steve Beshear, Jack Conway, Allison Lundergan Grimes, the current chairperson of the Kentucky Democratic Party, Patrick Hughes, and the immediate past chair of the party, Dan Logston. It is a complaint about conspiracy to defraud Kentucky's Democratic voters, corruption, cronyism, and intentional violation of party bylaws. Party bylaws have the force of law, and I have accused the five defendants of conspiring to determine the outcome of the May 19th primary election ahead of time without the participation of Kentucky's Democratic Party voters. In other words, I'm accusing them of attempting to rig the upcoming Democratic primary election for governor, also the Allison's re-election to Secretary of State, and I'm accusing Governor Beshear of having rigged last year's Democratic primary for U.S. Congress in Kentucky's 6th District, where I was one of the candidates, and he endorsed the other candidate, Elizabeth Jensen, in advance of that primary, thereby rigging it.
Your Honor, we're not prepared today, obviously, to address the motions to dismiss, and we plan to do that on the 27th. Just in response to what Mr. Young offered, Mr. Young is a declared candidate for governor in the May primary. He seems to be wanting to wage his campaign now in the courtroom instead of at the ballot box. His complaint.
So you're a candidate for which office?
Governor.
Governor.
And the complaint, Your Honor, fails to state any claim upon which relief may be granted. Mr. Young is essentially wanting to argue about intra-party politics within the Democratic Party, and there's a long line of precedent in this state, which Mr. Young actually acknowledges in his response, beginning with the Rosenberg case, that states very plainly courts don't interfere in intra-party politics. They're just, not justiciable claims. Certainly he's not pled any fraud with particularity as required by Rule 9. We can address the motion to dismiss later this month, but his complaint is for the most part, Your Honor, unintelligible, but what's clear from it is that it doesn't state any claims. And there's nothing stated there that is proper for review in this court.
Naturally, I disagree with everything you just said.
Well, let me tell you this, Mr. Young. My wife works for Jack Conway in a merit position. And if you've got any problem with that, she's not a non-merit. She's worked over
I
there.
have no problem with that, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. I was going to tell you, if you did have a problem with it, I'd certify it to the Supreme Court, and I think you'd probably back me on that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Even if you did have a problem with it, I probably still wouldn't recuse because she's not a non-merit, she's a merit employee.
I have no problem.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Guilfoyle's out of the country, okay? I will get you a decision within 3 days of the motion to dismiss, okay? Now, you either know yay or nay, but we can't do a trial next. I got other stuff going on that weekend, but I will, I'm not going to put it this way, Mr. Young. You're going to have a decision, an appealable decision, or something before the May 19th primary because we're required by law to move, on any kind of election issue in a very speedy manner, and we will. You just filed this on March, what was it, 3rd or something?
March 2nd.
March 2nd, my daughter's birthday. So anyway, you just filed this on March 2nd. We'll have something for you very quickly. Now, for that respect, since there's not that many of you that work on this, if Guilfoyle comes back, okay, I don't know where he's at. I'm assuming everybody's on spring break this week. And I don't know if Guilfoyle has kids or what he has or grandkids, tell him it might be grandkids. Everybody's out on spring break and everybody's left this area because it's all the high school spring break this week. If he comes back from wherever he's at, get with Mr. Young, and we'll do it as soon as we can. So, for instance, we could do it on the 15th or something like that. Sure. Okay? Is that all right? If you can get them all together, we'll have the arguments on the motion to dismiss earlier. But we just can't do it today because there's not enough people. Okay.
Your Honor, all of the pleadings on the motions.
Oh, if you want to submit it, I'll go ahead if you're all right about submitting it. I mean, you can talk to Guilfoyle, you can reach him. Then all you got to do is call John in my office, and we'll start working on it.
My understanding, Your Honor, is that he's in Spain. I will try to reach him by email.
Yeah, try to send him an email, and if he's okay, and I don't know, is there anybody else representing any of these other?
No.
Okay, who do you represent?
I represent Secretary Grimes.
You represent Ms. Grimes, and then
Mark Guilfoyle.
Who was he?
Governor Bashir, Attorney General Conway, Mr. Logsdon, and Mr. Hughes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so he represents all of them.
Your Honor, what I was trying to say was that all of the pleadings are complete on the motions to dismiss. They're not allowed to amend their 2 motions. I've submitted my written answer. In fact, I submitted it on April 1st, which means that we could hear it today, but I realize that's not going to happen.
Right.
And you could issue a written order without a hearing. And I don't see why that shouldn't be done.
Well, let's do this. You get a hold of Guilfoyle, send him an email, and send John an email if you just want me to look at the pleadings and issue it.
Sure.
Okay? I don't know anything about the law on this, Mr. Young, to be totally honest.
They provided some cases.
Right. I will tell you this.
I provided some cases in my answer.
I was a clerk for Bill Graham 2 solid years, and way over my head as a young law student, and been a circuit judge for almost going on 9 years. I haven't had any I haven't had anything between, like Republicans suing Republicans about anything, and I haven't had any Democrats do the same thing. Now, I will tell you this, I've had a lot of cases of the Democrats versus the Republicans, okay? So I have had some of those cases, but I haven't had what we call intra-party cases. I never even, don't even know how, they're trying to get, and this is coming down the pike, I guess, hopefully Phil draw it. It seems like I draw ever strange, but they're trying to get something about the Republicans are trying to do some kind of caucus or something.
Yes,
not to have it'd be interesting to see how that works.
I don't know.
I'm just sure one of us will
looked at
get
the
that.
Republican Party bylaws and never hope to. It seems to me they're allowed to do that if they want.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mr. Young, I'm a registered Democrat, and I was appointed by Paul Patton to the district judge, and appointed by Ernie Flasher to this court. So, I feel like I'm sort of there, You got, I would, of course, I'd already announced that nobody was going to run against me when I ran, but, I guess he figured, well, I can put in another Sam McNamara, or I can just go ahead and do Wingate, I guess that's what he was thinking. He didn't have much of a choice. Right. Sort of backed him into a corner a little bit, I guess. But when he did call me personally to tell me he appointed me, and I did thank him. All right, gentlemen.
Your Honor, can I just say, one of the main cases my answer is based on is Smith versus Allwright, U.S. Supreme Court, 1944. It's the case where the U.S. Supreme Court said that no matter what the bylaws of the Texas Democratic Party said, they may not exclude black people from voting in the primary in Texas.
Right. Well, that's neat. We go off the record, but I've read all those Lyndon Johnson books. Who's that? Cato or Cairo wrote? Carroll or yeah. And he looks like he may have stole that election back in what was it, 40? What was it, 44? Is that what it was? Yeah, he defeated that and
Might have.
he might have.
I wouldn't
Thank you.
ask them. Thank you, Your Honor.
Very good.
Thank you.
We got something.
You're required to be there, move to the federal level exchange, and in year 2 dismantle that program. We cannot afford to do otherwise. And we need to allow insurance to be purchased across state lines. We need to work with those states around us in this country to make sure that happens. These are the ways we'll get better quality insurance.
Yeah, he wants to cut it off as criminal. You're going to have death panels, Matt. Bevan,
yes,
death panels.
I'm like Mac. Matt, I will take it down. The first thing I do is executive order on December the 8th, right after I'm...
Oh, come on, Will T.
But let me tell you something else. And I'll give him the thumb cash. And it'll go on the federal website. You can just click on the states and hit KY, and then all our information will be there. So I'm not going to hurt anybody on that.
So they're all for federalizing it? Federal governments? I thought they was against Obama. They're saying giving all the power to Obama, give the states' rights, or giving our sovereignty up. That's our health care. Fuck the federal government.
They're to look for money for next year. The only thing that's going to come out is a cockroach on crutches with tears in its eyes. That's what we're going to face. And that's why we need to have government for the next 24 years, and we'll give them the same cockroach back 4 years later.
I'm very happy about the result today.
He said something about doing it in the next couple days, because I was
It
in there
could be
too.
as soon as he does all the research. He said he was not quite familiar with cases of this type, but I'm confident he could do it probably within a week.
Why is it, do you think that he didn't even know that you were running?
Well, he asked me what I was running for.
Right,
And I
so
had to answer, well, I'm running for governor, Your Honor.
it just seems there's only 2 candidates. How long has this case been before him, and this is the first time that...
1 month.
And he never thought what this was about. There's one lawyer that was there representing Allison Grimes, but there's 5 defendants.
That's right. The 5 defendants are Governor Steve Beshear, Attorney General Jack Conway, Ms. Grimes, who is the Secretary of State and is supposed to be Kentucky's top election official, and then the current chairman of the Kentucky Democratic Party, Patrick Hughes, and the immediate past chairman, Dan Logsdon, who just stepped aside after 4.5 years as chair.
So you're kind of suing everybody, sounds like.
No, I'm suing 5 people who I feel are the ringleaders. They're probably the most powerful 5 Democrats in Kentucky.
I saw Patrick Hughes on KET, and Bill Goodman mentioned Geoff Young, mentioned your name, and but Patrick Hughes didn't really want to talk about it at all.
Did he say he didn't know me?
No, he wasn't like this, Judge. Who are you? He definitely knew you, but he had like a smirk on his face, kind of like, you know, Mitch McConnell tactic of just calling the person my opponent instead of calling him by name, that type of thing. But I've also read other comments that he's written in the paper about how that it's a marginal slate and it's already further marginalized, and he's made public comments, you know, basically distancing himself away from your campaign.
Right. And my claim is that that's illegal.
Right.
He can't do that because the voters, the Democratic voters of Kentucky, are supposed to decide who wins the primary and who goes up against the Republican in November. Not Patrick Hughes, not Governor Beshear, not the chief election officer of the state, not Jack Conway, my opponent. And so he's breaking the law when he says things like that, in my opinion. I'm not an attorney, but I've read a lot of the relevant laws on this situation.
You're the one filing all these motions, though, right? And representing yourself?
I'm representing myself.
So you're a pro se lawyer. I feel like it's definitely immoral, it's definitely unethical, but what's to say the Democrats are just allowed to wheel and deal and play favorites and play nepotism, play spoils, big machine politics, and it's definitely wrong and it's not for democracy, but you're saying that it's illegal.
Yes, I am. Section 6 of the Kentucky Constitution says all elections shall be free and fair.
Section 6.
And laws shall be passed by the General Assembly to make sure that this happens. Then I looked at the laws, and there are plenty of laws that say primary election is an election. It has to be free and fair. It has to be done according to all proper procedures. And so these 5 defendants are breaking the law.
Guess he got a good verdict.
I guess so. They're saying
he's skipping.
As I was saying, Governor Beshear is breaking the law. He's a crook.
So, yeah, that's right. We was talking actually about the legal specifics. You said Section 6 of Kentucky's Constitution says all elections should be fair and equal.
All elections, including primaries.
It also goes against their own bylaws.
Right.
Which, why write any rules if you don't even listen to your own bylaws?
Right. Bylaws are binding.
You'd also mentioned some case in Texas, something about black people weren't allowed to do something or something. I don't know.
Yes, I cited an
Here, 10:30?
You want this?
10 o'clock, okay.
You want this?
I don't care.
John Solomon.
I think I'm in love with your client, so that's between you and me.
Yeah, I told him he has no chance.
Well, she's married, right? But there's divorce too, right? That happens.
What qualifies you specifically? What makes you the best of the 4 good candidates that would be up here to lead the Commonwealth and to lead the Republican Party into this 2015 election? Let's go to Let's start with Mr. Comer. We'll come back then to Mr. Heiner, Mr. Scott, and Mr. Bevin.
Leadership's very important in this race. It's one of the campaign themes that we're running on. I stood before this group 4 years ago as Commissioner of Agriculture. At that time, there were stories being circulated in the press about problems with the previous commissioner, problems in the Department of Agriculture. I said I would call for an audit, stand up to leaders in my own party, and do what's right, make that government agency transparent, efficient, and accountable. I did that. I stood before this group and said I would pass industrial hemp legislation, when very few people probably thought that I could do that. Said I would stand up to Barack Obama and help him get off the backs of our family farmers in the state. I did that. I said I'm the type of leader that can bring people together to pass legislation in Frankfurt and Washington, D.C., and I did that. So a lot of people talk the talk. I've walked the walk, and that's what leadership's all about. Leadership's not about being partisan and giving every speech, bashing Frankfurt Democrats, or even though I disagree with them on 99% of everything. It's about bringing people together to actually accomplish something. That's what I'll do as a leader and as your next governor.
This is Hal Heiner. At the root of this question is why I'm excited about the possibility of facing Jack Conway in the fall. Jack Conway is a creature of Frankfurt. And what I believe, in order for this state to move forward, what we need is a governor that his career has been in the private sector. Not building a political organization, but building a business that understands accountability budgeting, that understands the importance of a private sector cabinet of experienced individuals that know how to move this state forward. We can't have a governor, we can't have Jack Conway as governor when he has spent his life in Frankfurt with rehashed ideas that have been holding the state back. What we need is what's happened in the states that are moving forward the fastest. Look at what's going on in Indiana. Look at what's going on now in Michigan, solving their Detroit bankruptcy problem. Look what's happening in Tennessee. Cross that boundary from Christian County down into Clarksville and see the cranes and the business expansion. They're electing conservative Republican business governors, bringing in business principles and new ideas into their capital. True leadership, and that's what we need in Kentucky.
Well, Scott, when I did the jump for the veterans from 3,500 feet, keep in mind I am a trained paratrooper and I still skydive. I had a chute malfunction and I had extremely bad twisted lines, and some of the people there knew I was having problems. They didn't know what. But I knew what I was doing. I knew how much time, I knew how much altitude I had to play with that, see if I could get it fixed before I let it go. And I had 400 feet left and I fixed it and I nailed the landing. A good leader has to know what they're doing. And if you want to look at my life and wonder how Will T did what he did, go to willtscott.com and look at my bio and you'll see. But the one thing a leader has to be willing to do for you to make your life better is to risk his political future for doing right for you. And if you got anybody here that's running here to be governor, they're not the right person, and I'm not saying they're not. What you want is somebody that wants to fix things for you. You don't want somebody that just wants to be governor and senator and on. You want a servant. Thank you.
This is Matt Bevin. I'm also a trained paratrooper, but you don't see me doing that. I've got a wife and 9 kids that would beg to differ with that, at least the wife part of it. But I will tell you this: leadership comes by example. I am a former military officer. You lead by example. This is imperative. We've not had enough of it in politics in America, let alone here in Frankfurt. Leadership comes from putting stakes in the ground. When I announced my candidacy, I said I'll put out a plan. I challenged the 2 men to my right to do the same, and they're finally doing so, some in bits and pieces and some in sort of half-baked form. Look at the specifics of what we're telling you. I beg you, please, look at who is leading. Leadership doesn't mean you say one thing to one room and a different thing to another room because you think that's the answer they want to hear. Leadership comes from putting a stake in the ground and leading on it. I don't need or want this job badly enough to misrepresent who I am and what I'll do on behalf of you in order to get the job. And I challenge you, please, in this next month, to look very closely at each of us because there are distinct differences.
Well, unfortunately, time is getting away from us here, gentlemen. I very much appreciate all of you answering our questions tonight. Questions submitted by the Louisville Tea Party and our 970 AM The Answer audience. And We are at the point now where it's time to make final statements. You will have 3 minutes to talk about your plans, to tie up any loose ends.
1944 case, U.S. Supreme Court, which I included as part of my answer to both motions to dismiss. And this 1944 case, the U.S. Supreme Court said black people may not be kept out of voting in primaries in Texas, regardless of any Texas state law, regardless of any provision of the Kentucky Democratic Party bylaws, and regardless of anybody's messing up. You may not prevent black people, at that time they were known as Negroes, you may not prevent Negroes from voting in a Texas Democratic primary.
How does that?
That applies to the entire country now.
How does that apply to your case specifically?
Well, you will not believe the rationale behind their motions to dismiss. Their rationale is, well, a primary election is not an election at all. It doesn't have to be free and fair. All of this is an internal party matter, and we heard John Solomon say that to the judge this morning. It's all an internal party matter, and they don't have to be fair. What the defendants are saying is we are legally allowed to rig primary elections, and I strongly disagree with that.
From tonight's debate, whatever you'd like to do with that time to give the people of of our audience here on 970 AM The Answer and our audience here at the St. Matthew's Community Center some sense of exactly who you are and what the next 4 years would be like as governor. Let's start with Hal Heiner. We will then go to Matt Bevin, Will T. Scott, and James Comer.
Thank you again, Tea Party, for hosting this tonight. It's been a great night, Joe. Thank you for the questions. Tell you, I'm an unlikely candidate for governor. My background is in business. It's not in Frankfurt. It's been a business directly in the field of job attraction. That's what I've done for the last 25 years of my life. And before that, I was a civil engineer working on infrastructure all across the state. Sheila's here tonight. Sheila and I have lived a missional life. We feel like the best life, the most fulfilling life, is a life focused on others. And I'll tell you, I can't stay on the sidelines any longer when it comes to Kentucky. I can't stand seeing us lose to other states on what's happening in states north of us and south of us as they're providing jobs for the people in their states, for their next generation. And as adults, that's our prime responsibility, is to prepare the next generation and leave a Kentucky that's better than the one that we inherited. That's in peril today. We have a heritage here in our state of deep families, multi-generational families, and an interconnectedness. A great place to live and a great place to raise a family. But if we do not improve the economy, if we don't kickstart the economy in this next 4 years, all of that is in peril. We have to grow jobs. The $91 million our governor talked about this past summer, the fact that he had to sweep dollars from everything, from mental health, all of the other areas, law enforcement, reduce the size of Kentucky State Police, all those areas sweeping dollars is a symptom of what's going on in Kentucky, where our economy is not even keeping pace with the rate of inflation. We cannot stay where we are. We cannot stand 4 years of Jack Conway as governor in Kentucky and still be the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. So that's why I'm here before you tonight, as a business person who has spent his life in job attraction, as a person civically, that for the last 20 years of my life I've been involved in education, trying to help kids move forward faster, whether it's kids with learning differences, whether it's kids that start life with the fewest breaks. And we can do it. It's happening in other states all around us. It just hasn't come to Kentucky yet. I've been involved. And I'm asking you tonight to join me in this effort. I'm asking you to join me in this primary on May 19th. I'm asking you in November. If we make it through this, I think we might, that you join me in November. And most importantly, I'd ask that you join me next year in the biggest battle we've ever had in Kentucky. And that's changed the direction of a state that is dramatically off track. It's off track in jobs. It's off track in our economy. We're off track in education and 98 other areas. So thank you again. I'm Hal Heiner. Thank you so much for your attention and your attendance tonight. And I'm really hoping you'll join me not just this year, but for the next 4-year administration. Thank you.
This is Matt Bevin. For all of you here in this room, thank you for being here. For those listening on the radio, thank you for tuning in, especially for those of you that may just be sitting in your driveway making people wonder why you haven't come in. Thank you for listening to this debate. It matters. It matters significantly. Mark Twain once noted that the difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. And there's significant truth to that, and it's very significant as well as it relates to candidates. We have 4 solid candidates. We are going to beat Jack Conway in November, and it's about high time that we bring some fiscal sanity back to Frankfurt. But the truth be told, there are differences. I'm asking you, please, reach for lightning. If you truly want something different, look at who has been consistent. Look at who has fought on issues that other people were afraid to take on. You look at my life as a job creator, as a military veteran, as a father of 9, as somebody I'm the only one on the stage that's never been an elected official. Some of you understand that there was one effort I made because a lot of people wanted to see that happen. I'm unafraid to challenge those in my own party and those outside my party. If you want somebody that is beholden to the interests in Frankfurt, you've got that choice on this stage. If you've got somebody that's the chosen one and beholden to the people in Washington, D.C., you've got that on this stage. If you want someone to fight for you, those of you in this room who pay taxes, who are the veterans, who are the parents raising children, those of you that are out there every single day suffering under the regulatory burden that our government consistently suffocates you with, then I would ask for your vote on May 19th. Janine Hampton and I are not just so much hot air. We have been consistent. We've been steady. We offer the diversity that we talk about in this race. I am willing to do for this state what I would do for my own children. We've got great opportunity. I'm running because I do love this state. Why not Kentucky? Why should we not be a beacon to America? Ronald Reagan very famously said that it's morning in America. My question to you in this room, are you going to get out of bed? Will you get up this morning? Because if you are not willing to do the things necessary to make a brighter future, then we don't deserve a brighter future. We've got to make sacrifices. In closing, I will say this. I pray for my children that they will have wisdom. I pray that they will know the difference between right and wrong. But I pray additionally that they will have the courage to then do the right thing. That is what separates leaders from talkers. We need political courage in this state. And this is what I offer to you. I will fight for you like I fight for my own children. And I will defend this state and the sovereignty of this state and the Constitution of this state like I defended this nation when I wore her uniform. I would be grateful for your vote on May 19th.
Okay. Will T. Scott, I've written a lot of opinions while I was on the Supreme Court, but keep in mind that I told you that if there's anybody here, you all are going to make the decision. You got to make a decision for 4.4 million people. Do you really want a Republican government? Do you really want government to be better and work better for the people? Do you really want it to reach out and nurture the hopes and aspirations? Well, if you do, you got to get out and work for it. I wrote an opinion, and I'm very proud of that opinion, and it was contrary to anything your teachers ever taught you. They taught you 3 branches of government, but I pointed out in the opinion, no, there's 4. There's one predominant branch, the people, that controls the other 3. And that's what you all have to do. Go ahead, I appreciate the applause back there. That's what you have to do. We just have to stand up and take a big broom and sweep them bats out of Frankfurt. I'm telling you. Not only are the first 4, there's a couple on the second and several on the third and fourth. I'll say this. My dad used to say that you could take all the legislators in Kentucky and line them up head to toe and they point in all different directions. You got to have somebody down there. And if there's anybody who wants to be governor up here, don't send them. If there's somebody up here that wants to serve and just wants to fix problems, mark them up. And that's your job. But when you do it, you got to reach out, grab everybody's hand, because we're all going up this mountain together, all 4 of us. And whichever one of us gets elected, well, they're going to drag the other 3 with them. I'm telling you, you bring people up, even if they're your opponent, you bring them up there high and you let the people see them, and they get more training than they take over. Remember, 24 years, and we're going to nurture, we're going to feed that cockroach. And we're going to keep it in a little box. And 24 years from now, when we're broke, we're going to give it back to them, and let them keep it for 4 years. So all you have to do is just get together, talk to your friends. You know, we have differences of opinion on some issues, but the one thing we don't disagree on is this is the greatest state and the greatest nation in the world. And we're the greatest people and the most courteous and the most appreciative. So why can't we have that great tomorrow? If not today, then down the road for us and our children. Well, the answer is you can have anything you want. We just have to work for it. And we just have to stand together, hold each other's hand. Somebody gets tired, we pick them up, we carry them, and we go to the top of this mountain. But send somebody that's going down there to fix this thing. And I love every one of you. Thanks for being so nice to everybody here. And you all just been great people. Even those of you out there sitting in the car outside and they're wondering what you're doing, as Matt said. And the people at home, hey, you're the economic engine of this state. You pull this train. Don't stop.
This is James Comer, and thank you so much for being here tonight. I look out in the crowd, and I would argue that I'm the unlikely candidate for governor. I'm like many of you. Grew up in the middle class. I've worked hard for what I have. I'm married, have 3 children. We're Christians. We go to public schools. We shop at Walmart. We work hard. I started out as a farmer, worked my way up. I believe that government can do better. Our government in Kentucky is too big. That's why I ran for Commissioner of Agriculture. I had a passion for agriculture, and I had a dissatisfaction with government. We went in there and we proved what one person can do with leadership, with a bold agenda. Over the course of the last 3.5 years, we've been able to transform that government agency, doing more with less, just what you expect your candidates and your office holders to do. I've actually done that. We focused on creating good-paying jobs and offering new opportunities to family farmers and agribusinesses across the state, and we've done that. We stood up to wasteful spending, waste, fraud, and abuse, and corruption. One of the things that gets lost in translation in this governor's race is we have a high level of corruption in state government in the way we award contracts and bids and things like that. We don't get our money's worth when we build roads and bridges and schools because we pay too much. It's not just because of prevailing wage, which I want to repeal to be able to save every taxpayer money. It's because we have a culture in Frankfort that needs to be changed. I'm the one candidate that has done that. I've stood up to my own party. I'll do what's right. I'm running for governor because I want to improve the business climate in the state. I want to change the culture in Frankfort, and I want to provide the badly needed leadership that we so desperately desire in this state. I'm running a positive campaign for governor. It's sad when we have candidates that come in and write big checks, and they have super PACs that come in with out-of-state money where they don't have to disclose their donors. That's what happened to Washington, D.C. My friends, I don't want that to happen in Kentucky. We need to elect someone from the middle class that's worked hard, that's running an honest campaign, that's talking about what they're going to do to move this state forward. I asked you to go to jamescomer.com and look at our proposals. You may not agree with me on every issue, but you will know where I stand on every issue. Just as I did 4 years ago as a candidate for Commissioner of Agriculture, I told you what I was going to do. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do as governor. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to stand up to corruption. I'm going to make Kentucky the most competitive state in the United States to attract good-paying jobs. I'm going to inspire the next generation of leaders so that they stay in this state, start their families here, start their businesses here, and we can grow the economy and solve the problems that we have in this state. I sincerely ask that you vote for James Comer and Chris McDaniel to be your next governor and lieutenant governor. We can work together, we can move Kentucky forward, and we can make Kentucky proud again. Thank you all very much.
There are so many unasked questions tonight. We just simply ran out of time. My gosh, guys, we could do another several hours. I would encourage you, those of you listening at home, those of you here, keep asking questions, keep kicking tires, keep talking to your friends, keep finding out. Let's keep making democracy work here. And I want to thank the members of the Tea Party for inviting me to be part of this tonight, and Stephanie and all the people here at 970 AM The Answer who worked so hard on getting this.
Yeah, I disagree with it too.
I think the voters would be outraged if they realized Their motion to dismiss lost the case for them.
They last year or a few years ago, you had Ed Marksberry, who had some very similar problems.
Yeah,
he said he was going to file
2014.
something or do something, but it never materialized. I never heard about the conclusion of that.
Okay, well, that was Allison Lundergan Grimes running for Senate against Mitch McConnell. And Ed Marksberry sued her for doing exactly the same thing that she's doing again this year, and Jack Conway is doing again this year, pretending she doesn't have any opponents when technically she does. And what happened was Ed Marksberry got involved in negotiations with the Grimes campaign, and they came to some kind of agreement, and he dropped his lawsuit. Well, that's not happening with me.
There's
For one thing, they won't talk to me. They never return a phone call. They never respond to my invitations to mediate or settle this case. I asked the judge today in the courtroom to order all the parties to engage in settlement talks, and the judge is going to take that under consideration. He might do it.
It's kind of frustrating for me because I've been a Democrat, my entire adult life, and it feels like if this is the behavior of the executive of the executive, I guess the top officials of the Democratic Party,
Right.
it doesn't seem conducive to actually bringing in new members, to the party. I don't feel included in this, in this party. I feel like when it comes to health care or, a lot of the major issues that we have right now, that we would be aligned, ideologically. But it seems like there's not even room for new ideas, new candidates, any debates. And this is frustrating. This is frustrating for me just to kind of witness all this.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I am concerned as a candidate, an official candidate who filed with my running mate, Jonathan Masters, for lieutenant governor, and what they're doing, it's a long-standing pattern of behavior. The lawyer today quoted a case from 1954, which is 2 years before I was born. He is trying to claim in court, in official documents, that that case proves that primaries are not elections and that anything goes. They don't have to be free and fair. They can rig a...
Done and doing it right. Let me also salute all of our candidates and give you a chance to weigh in. Those of you who are supporters and friends and maybe were moved by what you heard tonight, let me ask for hands from the candidates individually here. Would you join me in a hand, first of all, for Matt Bevin? All right, how about a hand for James Comer? Would you join me in a round of applause for Hal Heiner tonight? And finally, a hand for Will T. Scott. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, for inviting us to your
primary election if they want. I think it's outrageous.
Both of y'all had kind of some old cases. He was mentioned, the judge himself mentioned something about the LBJ and Caro and something.
When I referred to the Texas, the U.S. Supreme Court case coming out of Texas, he started talking about LBJ and how he may have stolen his first election. And I haven't read the book, but it's quite believable.
It sounds unfavorable towards you, though. I mean, they're the ones that's trying to steal election, unless he's trying to say that someone had sued or something. It seemed like it was more favorable towards you.
I think he was off the record at that point. I think he was just making conversation.
So we're probably not allowed to talk about it? Is that what that means? It's off the record?
We can talk about it, but
the last thing...
It's not legally significant.
Allison Grimes had her lawyer there, but Brashear, Conway, Hughes, and Logston has one lawyer, Mark something, and he's in Spain right now. Did he not know about this meeting today?
He had to know about it, but he apparently felt confident that Judge Wingate would not rule today on their motions to dismiss, so he didn't bother sending anybody else from his law firm. It's the same law firm that Patrick Hughes is a part of, and so he's gotten his own law firm to represent him and 3 other defendants. Apparently, they were all very confident that Judge Wingate would not rule today on their motions to dismiss. These motions are incredibly weak. I'm not a lawyer, but I tore them apart in my written response.
What's their argument?
Their argument is that a 1904 case, so it's 111 years ago, in Kentucky, said that as dicta, not as the main point of the case, that primary elections can't be considered elections. And
it almost sounds
a ton of case law has gone on since then. It's very clear now that from the Kentucky statutes that primary elections are elections, just like any other election is.
That sounds almost as ridiculous as his anti-gay argument, that it's not discrimination because straight people can't get gay married either. So
right.
He's saying that primaries aren't elections. That's what he's.
That's their.
So why is there a ballot box?
Primaries aren't elections.
Why are there voters?
Yeah, right, exactly. Why is such extreme care taken to make sure that there's no fraud? And the Kentucky Democratic Party, these 5 defendants have gone on record saying, no problem, any kind of fraud is permissible. We can rig primaries if we want. It's all an internal party matter. And I'm outraged about it.
You should be. Russell Brand, he points out that American politics, many times, especially presidential elections, the victor goes to the one who has most of the money. And so
I disagree.
You don't think that's a trend?
No, I don't, actually. It's a trend. Okay, certainly the large majority of cases.
Gatewood never got out of a ditch. So I mean, I feel like if he had like the millions of dollars, I don't know. I mean,
what about
go ahead.
The Tea Party insurgent in Virginia who just beat Eric Cantor, Republican establishment guy. He spent something like $120,000 for the entire campaign. Cantor spent millions. Tea Party challenger knocked him off.
There's a guy in Rhode Island too who spent $35 and wound up getting like 30-something% of the vote.
All right. The fellow in Virginia won.
Well, I guess I was thinking.
Party as we try to make the right decision about who should lead this Commonwealth in the 2015 election. This is Joe Elliott on 970 AM, The Answer.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington.